Psalm chapter 19. The heavens, notice it's plural. We'll get into that later. Why is it plural? There is more than one heaven. There are 3 heavens mentioned in the Bible. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. The psalmist said, when I consider thy heavens, not if. Now we've got a real problem in this generation because we've got a lot of kids that don't take time to consider the heavens. I tell them, you ought to shut off the TV, shut off the VCR once in a while, and go out and consider the heavens. I remember as a kid, we used to lay out in the yard and look at the clouds and try to see designs in the clouds, you know. Who can see the ships or whatever, you know. And my dad would teach us and Mom would teach us the different kinds of clouds and what does this mean. You know, when you see the cirrus clouds, that means there's probably going to be a front coming through. Probably in a few days you'll have a rain. You know, and you can actually, and Jesus talked about the Pharisees, how they were able to discern the face of the sky. You know, when it's red and lowering, you have a certain kind of weather. But we need to really take time to consider the heavens. He said, when I consider thy heavens. Psalm 39 said, while I was musing, the fire burned. The word muse is only used twice in the entire Bible. The other one is Psalm 143. He said, I muse on the work of thy hands. The word muse literally means to think. That'll be a quiz question. What does the word muse mean? Muse means to think. Now English is a very interesting language. We have a word theist, which means a person who believes in God. Then you put the letter A in front, you get the opposite of. So an atheist is a person who claims to not believe in God. Just the letter A in front changes the meaning to mean the opposite of. The word muse means to think. The word amuse literally means to not think. That's the meaning of the word. They have entire parks where you can pay and go do that. How many have ever heard of those before? They're called amusement parks, right? We have a whole generation that wants to be amused, don't we? They don't want to muse. They don't know how to muse. They only know how to be amused. That's why if you watch the Hollywood movies, they get more violent, more explosions. Got to be something bigger, better than the last time. Just like drugs, you know, a person takes drugs or alcohol or anything like that. They want to get this thrill. Well, after a while, it takes more to get the same thrill. The person who drank 4 beers and got drunk, now he's got to drink 6, you know, and then he's got to drink 10, and pretty soon he's got to drink whiskey, and pretty soon nothing works. And the same with a person who chases thrills all their life. The thrill seekers, they're always looking for something bigger or better. They're being amused. They don't take time to muse. Just go outside and lay on the roof and look at the stars. We used to do that as kids. We'd go campouts, you know. Just go look at the stars for a while. I remember up in Colorado one time. We're up in the mountains. We laid out 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up for some reason, couldn't sleep. I went out, laid on the picnic table, and saw 300 shooting stars in 1 hour. I still remember that, you know, it's 40 years later. It was awesome. Remember laying in Grandpa's driveway in the backyard in the middle of Arkansas, you know, and seeing the shooting stars going all over the place, scores of them. We need to take time to consider the heavens. Because when you do this, the psalmist said, when I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him? See, a person who considers what God can do or what God has done is not impressed with what man can do. We see the bodybuilder, you know, he can lift 500 pounds. Well, you should see what God can do with 500 pounds. Right? And we've got an entire generation now that are sports crazy. They can rattle off the top 10 football teams and the top 10 baseball teams, but they couldn't name the 12 disciples. We have a problem, folks. We have an entire generation now that has not learned to muse. The story is told of the prince who was going to become the king when Dad died. The dad called him in. He said, son, I'm about to die. You will be the king. Son, I know you're only 20 years old. I'd like you to promise you'll do one thing for me, would you, son? He said, sure, Dad. Now, the boy was anxious to be king because he was going to party, party, party. Man, he's going to throw the biggest party, last the next 25 years. He said, son, I only ask you to do one thing for me. I'm asking you on my deathbed. He said, Father, whatever you say, I promise I'll do it. He said, son, I want you to take the first 30 minutes of every day and do nothing but think. He said, that's all you want? He said, yep, that's all I want. First 30 minutes, no entertainment, just think. He said, okay, Dad, no problem. Well, the first day he thought about all the parties he was going to throw and all the stuff he was going to do, you know, and he had a day all planned out, and he ran off into the day 30 minutes later. After several days, though, it started getting to him. He sat there thinking, you know, where's this lifestyle going to lead me? If I keep this up, where am I going to be in 5 years? What kind of a king am I anyway? What kind of example is this for my people? And after about a week, he finally got his life straightened out. And we've got an awful lot of kids that don't ever take time to think about where they're going. They're so busy being amused, they don't take time to muse. Since television came into prominence in America, it's gotten much worse. We have a lot of kids, honestly, I told my kids in school, what would happen if you couldn't have any electronic devices, no radio, no tape player, no TV, for 24 hours? It's like, oh, wow, I'd die, man. Well, you'd be surprised. You really wouldn't die. You might go through withdrawal for a few days, but you wouldn't die. We didn't have a television in our house for 11 years when my kids were growing up. They didn't have one. I wanted them to learn to muse. I like to see the little kids playing over here in the yard. Kids need to learn to imagine, to make up things. See the kids playing with the trucks and the cars. They have to have, developing an imagination is a vital part of growing up. People who study child development and child growth will tell you, kids that sit in front of the TV from the time they're 2 years old, something's wrong in the way they develop. They're not learning to think. They're learning to be entertained. It's got to affect them somehow. Go out and consider the heavens.